It's been 2 weeks since my last upload, and for some reason, this is the first comment that I saw when I logged in. This person calling me out, saying that I've seen this meme before and wondering where did it come from. And then I'm like, yeah, so have I, so let's look into it. This is going to be a history of a meme video. This is where I take an internet thing and try to explain where it came from. I got this idea from another channel. Used to do these all the time, but they stopped, so now I'm doing them. So without further ado, the meme is this. It's not a bug, it's a feature. A common phrase among Apple customers or anyone who's just defending their decision to use something really expensive. In this case, we're looking at Apple's infamous Thunderbolt ports. It's only recently that they switched to USB-C after using these proprietary connectors for over a decade. What does it mean? Well, as with most memes, there's no single origin point. Instead, it evolved gradually over many years. We start this story way back in 2011 in the comments. A section of a review of the MacBook Pro by Michael Josh. He was the owner of the tech website The Verge at the time. He would go on to co-found the social media platform currently known as Blue Sky. He wrote a long piece detailing his disappointment with the port situation. It basically said that while this MacBook had a ton of great features like a Retina display and faster CPU, the fact that it could only charge via its DisplayPort meant that he couldn't really use any of the ports for anything else. Back in 2011, MagSafe chargers were still relatively new. You know those ones that plug in at the wall and then have a little round connector that snaps into the laptop? Apple stopped putting these on MacBooks in 2016, and in his article, Josh speculates that maybe one day Apple will make the charging connector part of the port, so that you can unplug it if you need to use the port for something else. He ends the article by saying, "I don't care how Apple does it, but I need an untethered future." Little did he know that only a few months later, Apple would announce Thunderbolt, a new standard that featured data transfer speeds that were up to 8 times faster than FireWire, the older standard that MagSafe was based on. It could also charge your computer, although it didn't have a dedicated charging mode, meaning that you'd always get full-speed data transfer or charging. You had to choose one or the other, so why did Apple bother? Well, Thunderbolt promised to deliver high-speed connectivity for devices like external hard drives and displays straight over this one cable without the need for a separate power adapter. All the computer's power would go directly through the cable into the device. While this sounds convenient, it actually led to a number of problems. One of the main issues was that if you plugged in a non-Thunderbolt device, you'd get full voltage and fry it. So you needed special cables to convert from Thunderbolt to a different kind of connection, so you'd lose the convenience factor. Another issue was that because the power went through the cable, it limited how long the cable could be. Some users found that their cable would stop working if they extended it past about 1 meter, which wasn't ideal if you wanted to move around your house or office. Because of this, many people began searching for workarounds. Some purchased adapters to step down the power, or even cut off the end of the cable and solder a new connector onto it, effectively making a shorter cable. On July 2013, a user on the Macromars forums posted about their experience buying a new MacBook Pro and learning that they could uneasily replace the stock Thunderbolt cable with a longer aftermarket one. The post title simply read, "Is it possible?" A few days later, another user replied to say, "No, it's not possible unless you splice the cables." Then another reply under that said, "Yep, I'm experiencing the same issue. I contacted AppleCare, and the answer is no, it's not possible. Not sure what to do." The user who originally started the thread replied to this by saying, "Apple needs to fix this ASAP. Otherwise, why pay $2,000 for a laptop if you have to buy a longer cable?" That's when another user chimed in and said, "I believe it was intentional. I think it's a feature, not a bug." And with that, the meme was born. It was obviously a joke, a play on the phrase, "It's not a bug, it's a feature," that developers sometimes use when a product ships with an issue. It means it was intentional, not a mistake. But then somebody added a little winky face emoji, which made it clear that it was just a joke. But then someone else responded to the original poster and told them that they should just accept it because Apple already has plans to switch to USB-C. But the thing is, it's not like Apple was going to switch to USB-C because of this complaint. Apple has been working on moving to USB-C for a lot longer than Thunderbolt has been around. For example, in 2014, there was a report claiming that Apple was testing MacBook Airs with USB-C ports. The European Union was pushing legislation that would require all electronics to adopt USB-C and Apple likely wanted to beat the deadline. It took another 8 years until Apple finally adopted it for their laptops, probably because of a combination of factors, including manufacturing costs, battery life concerns, and public perception. People felt that replacing a perfectly good port with USB-C would be a useless change. Anyway, back to our story. After this post went viral, many other users began making jokes about it. On Reddit, a couple of people created fake customer support chat logs where the user complained about bugs with their new Thunderbolt cable. And the agent responded with some variation of, "Sir, it's not a bug, it's a feature." Some people even edited the Apple support website to add a section titled, "Why is it a feature?" under the troubleshooting page. Although the meme was funny, the fact remained that Thunderbolt cables were incredibly restrictive. Many users continued to complain about it online. By 2015, the problem was bad enough that Macworld ran an article with the headline, "Thunderbolt sucks, and here's why." Despite this, though, there were still defenders of Thunderbolt, mostly because they didn't really have anything else to compare it to. In 2016, after MagSafe was dropped in favor of USB-C, many users were excited about the prospect of finally being able to use their ports for other things. However, as we now know, USB-C didn't fix the issue of cable length. In fact, many people reported that the USB-C cable that came with their MacBook Pro was shorter than the old MagSafe cable. It turns out that Apple secretly put a limit on the cable length. When they introduced MagSafe back in 2006, the cables that came with the MacBooks were between 4.5 and 5.7 meters long. However, third-party manufacturers were free to make longer cables. Maybe this is why you remember having a really long cable if you bought a Mac around this time. But the point is that once Apple switched to USB-C, they were no longer free to make whatever length they wanted. This, combined with a higher demand for longer cables, resulted in shortages and artificially inflated prices. Before long, stories like this one started appearing across various websites. The media was quick to criticize Apple for setting such a short limit on the cable length. However, the truth is that they weren't doing anything wrong. Apple was well within their rights to specify the length of the cable. They owned the USB-C trademark, and USB Implementers Forum, the organization responsible for governing the USB-C standard, doesn't specify a minimum length. Apple just chose 1.8 meters. This made headlines, but it didn't result in any significant change. As far as I can tell, Apple still sets the minimum length requirement for MFI-certified USB-C cables. Now you might be thinking, okay, so this whole time it was just a bunch of people complaining about their cables. Why does this matter? Well, it matters because, as it turned out, these complaints were absolutely justified. In 2021, Apple quietly changed the minimum cable length from 1.8 meters to 0.9 meters, essentially cutting the maximum length in half. Unfortunately, they haven't updated the published specifications to reflect this change, which is pretty shitty of them. But that's why. Now you know why people keep talking about this. It's not a bug, it's a feature. It's a catchphrase that Apple users have used to defend their decisions to buy really expensive products ever since. Thank you for watching this whole video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you liked it, please consider supporting the channel. Till next time, I'll see you guys later.